Hello students, welcome back. In our last video, we did some pretty amazing things. We built out our gameplay world and the functionality of our player for light steps. So a lot of the visual front end of what our user who's playing the game is going to see. In this video, we're going to focus on some of the back end work because our game needs the logic and the understanding to know what state it is currently in. For example, when we first run our game, we might want to display a start screen to the user, and that would put the game in the start state. When that happens, we shouldn't show our gameplay world, we shouldn't show our player, we should show a start menu and disable all of our gameplay operations. But then when we maybe hit like a start button or press enter, we want to swap that start screen out and show the world and show the player and implement all of our movement that we just created. So this would be a play state. And eventually, as we play our game, we're going to die. And so we should no longer show the game world. We should put up a lose screen and transition to a lose state. So in this video, we're going to focus on giving our program the logic and understanding it needs to be able to swap from one state to another. Start, play, and lose. And in doing so, it will show the correct screen that we want to the user and trigger our gameplay movement. Now these screens that we're going to create, our start screen and our lose screen, we'll call them overlays because our gameplay world will actually always be there. And what we'll do is we'll actually just draw a start screen directly over it and then remove the start screen, and our gameplay world will be there. And then we'll draw our lose screen directly over it, hence the name overlays. So let's head to the computer screen and we'll dive right into this lesson on game states and overlays. So I have lesson 2's starter file open here in vscode.dev. I am going to minimize my browser here and we'll open this file directly. So I'm going to go to my light steps folder. I'm going to go to lesson number 2, lesson 2's starter file, and this is where we left off. So I think this is the exact same version of what we had before. Yep, I've got movement that's constrained to this first platform right here, so this is pretty good. I'm stuck here, and that's it, right? That's all I got. So what we want to do now is give our game the logic to say, hey, when we start our game, when we refresh our page, I want to see a start screen. I don't want to just be thrown into this gameplay world. So let's see how we're going to do that. So we're going to come over here, and mission 1 in our mission checklist says we need to add our game state values. All right, so we somehow have to let our program know what are the states that it's going to operate in. And we said we're going to do start, play, and lose. And so I'm going to have something that's going to keep track of those 3 particular states. That's going to be like a constant that we define. So I'm going to hit Command F here, Control F, to open up my search bar, and let's search for the mission 1 tag. It looks like that is the only version of that tag that I have. Well, that can't be correct. Let's take a look. So if I scroll down here, mission 1, M-I-S-S-I-O-N. Oh, do I have a space at the front of this? Oh, I have a space at the front. There we go. You got to be careful. You got to spell it out correctly. Spaces count. So if I go to my mission 1 tag, it puts us in our student edit zone. So we're going to create a constant here called game mode. And this is going to be an object that keeps track of all of the modes of operations that we have, all of our states. This is an object, much like our player was an object, right? It had curly brackets. And our player had properties that had specific values. And so we are going to create an object that has 3 properties here. Our 3 properties are going to be our 3 game modes of operation. So I'm going to use capital letters to indicate that, hey, these are special. These are game modes. These are our states. So I'll have a start state, and the value of the start state will be a string that says start. And then we'll have another property for the game mode object. We'll have a play state, whose value is a string play. And then we'll have one last property. We'll create a lose property, whose value will be the string lose. So now this constant variable is keeping track of all of the potential states that our game could operate in. Start, play, and lose. Later on, maybe we want to add like a pause state. We could throw it in here. Or a menu state. We could throw it in here. Or an inventory state. We could throw it in here. But for right now, for our functionality, start, play, and lose are perfect. There's just one problem here. This is a constant, which means this is never going to change. I feel like we need to change the state of our game, right? Because I got to be in the start state. I got to be in this state. And then at some point, I'm going to transition to be in this state. And then some point, I'm going to transition to be in this state. So I need another variable that's going to track the current state of our game, because that will change. So let's go to mission number 2. Mission number 2 says we have to define a variable here to set the current game mode. And when we start our game, we want it to be going to the title screen. So when we start our game, we got to set the value of current game mode to be the start mode. And if you look here, we're defining this variable with let, which means we are going to change its value over the life of this variable. So right now it is set to null, and null is just an empty piece of data. It holds no value. We don't want that to be the case. When we begin our game, we want to begin in the start state. So how do we put our game into the start state? Well, our states are being held in this object right here, in the game mode object. So we got to use that object. So we're going to say, all right, let's take a variable called current game mode, and we're going to assign it a value from our game mode object. Now, to get the properties of this game mode object, we just hit a dot, just like we did with our player, right? Player.x gave us the x property. And when I hit dot, I get my 3 properties right here: lose, play, and start. And when we begin our game, we want to start in the start mode. So we now have an understanding. Our game knows what mode of operation it is in. So let's see. Let's refresh our page. Okay, well, no changes. But that's all right, because we told the game, hey, right now, as soon as the program loads, you are in the start mode. You are in the start state. We just got to do something with that information. What do we want to do? Well, I want to show a start screen or a start overlay. So let's head to mission number 3. Mission number 3 finds us in a brand new draw function. So remember, we had like draw HUD, draw player, all these good things down here. We are now in the draw start overlay function. So what are we doing in here? Well, this is going to draw our start screen for us. So we begin by calling no stroke. And if you remember, that means give me an invisible marker so you do not see the outline of the shape that I'm about to draw. And then I put paint in my paint bucket with the fill function. And that paint is a transparent black, 0, 0, 0, none of the red, none of the green, none of the blue, with a transparency of 0.7, which means I'm going to be able to see slightly behind it, which is really good because then I'm drawing a rectangle whose top left corner is 0, 0. Its width is the entire width of my screen, and its height is the entire width of the entire height of my screen. So I'm making a rectangle that starts here and goes all the way to the width, all the way to the height. That rectangle is going to sit directly over my game world, and it's going to be slightly transparent. So I should be able to see my game world just a little bit behind it. This is the overlay for our start screen. It's going to sit over our game world. So now what we want to do is we want to add some text to that overlay. Mission 3 says we need to show the title over the game board. Okay, so I guess the first thing we'll say is we're already drawing some text here. I set a text size to 18, which is smaller, but that's okay. And then I have 3 pieces of text here. It says a memory path awaits. Cross the light bridges and follow the pattern. Press enter to begin. So I'd say that this is like what we'd call flavor text, right? It's trying to build up the story or the feeling of the game. So our player is going to get, these platforms are going to light up, and they have to jump to the platforms that light up, and they have to keep the sequence going. So it'll be like the red platform, then the red and the green, then the red, green, and purple, then red, green, purple, blue. So they have to follow that pattern. And so our flavor text is trying to build that idea. And then if you notice, we are putting all of our text at an x position of width times 0.05. So that's half of the width. And then our height, we're putting all of our heights at height times 0.44, height times 0.55, height times 0.66. So it looks like all of our text is going to be smack dab in the middle. But then here is a height times 0, here is height times 1, and multiplying by anywhere in between will position us. So here's like height times 0.5, this is height times 0.25, height times 0.75. It just moves us up and down. So our text is going to be stacked going, here's the top of it, and then we go all the way to the bottom. So let's emulate that whole process by creating another text. So I'll say text, and we'll do our title. We'll say light steps. and I'll put it at width times 0.5, so it'll be smack dab in the middle, and then I'll do my height times, I want this to be on the top of everything, so I'll multiply it by 0.3. All right, so there's just one problem. Right now, all of this text is going to have this paint color, right? This is the color it's going to be because that's the color in my paint bucket right now, that transparent black. So a text of transparent black sitting on a background of transparent black means you will not see it at all. So we got to put a new paint in our paint bucket. So we're going to fill it in with our text color, tab for autocomplete. So now it's going to be that nice white that we'll see. We should probably also align our text. Like, how do we want to position this? Because right now we're positioning this text smack dab in the middle of our screen at width over 2, or width, times 0.5. So I want to position the center of that text at the center of my screen. So I'm going to do text align, and we'll position in the X direction, center, and in the Y direction, center. All right, and then because this is my title, this is like the game title, I'm going to make the text bigger. I'll say text size is, let's make it 60 for this one. And then the rest of our text can be smaller. Okay, so we are going to have a really nice start overlay. Let's check it out. Ooh, no start overlay. Oh, okay, still no start overlay. Third time's the charm. Still no start overlay. Well, what's going on? Well, see, we wrote this function, but just because we wrote the function, it doesn't mean that we are calling the function or actually running the code yet. So we got to maybe look a little bit ahead here in some of our missions and say, okay, we wrote all the instructions. Now we actually have to run the instructions. Maybe that's what we do in mission number 4. Let's take a look. Mission number 4 finds us focusing on our lose overlay. Okay, so we're not going to actually run the start overlay function yet because we're going to build out the lose screen next. Our lose overlay is going to be very similar to our start overlay. We start by calling no stroke. I get an invisible marker so you don't see the outline of the shape I'm about to draw, and I put some paint in my paint bucket with the fill function. That paint is my transparent black, and then I draw a rectangle that sits over my entire screen for my lose overlay. We put a new color in our paint bucket, text color. We align center, center, and get some big text. And it says, you lost the pattern. Wah, wah, wah. So that's going to be like our game over. And then we get a smaller text, and here's our flavor text that says, the sequence has slipped away. You forgot the pattern. So now what do we want to do? We want to show a couple more pieces of text here. It says, show the restart instructions. Because even though they lost the game, we want them to play again. So we're going to take a text function, and we'll say press enter to try again. I'll keep everything caps. To try again. All right, press enter to try again, and then we'll set the width to be width times 0.5. So it'll be right in the center of the screen. And then our height, let's just keep pushing these texts further and further down. So we'll do height times 0.55. And then we want to also give them the option to just go back to our title screen. So we'll say text, press, oh, it's got to be a string. I got to put quotes here. Press R for the title screen. And we'll say width times 0.5. And height, we'll push it down even farther, 0.66. All right, so I think our start screen is done. Our lose screen is done. Those overlays are going to be really nice for us. We just got to figure out how do we call them so they actually show up, so that we actually draw them over the entire screen. Well, let's go to mission number 5. Mission number 5 says, show the correct overlay for the current game state. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to actually show those overlays. So mission 5 finds us in our draw scene function. Now remember, this draw scene function is getting called every single frame of our game because this is called inside of that P5 default draw function. So here's our P5 function, setup and draw. Draw gets called every frame, and here we are drawing our scene. And so this is kind of cool, right? We draw our backform, our player, our HUD, our platforms. You want to get rid of something? Just comment it out. We're not drawing the platforms anymore. So now if I refresh my game, no platforms. Wow, that's kind of creepy. I'm just floating in the void. Let's get our platforms back. Let's make sure we're actually drawing them. So it looks like we're just drawing everything. Why don't we just draw our overlays too? So let's see. Let's call that function. We'll call draw start overlay. I'll do a tab to autocomplete. And then to call the function, you actually need a set of parentheses there. That means go run the set of instructions that I've written in that function. All right, so now our start screen should show. Hey, that looks great. We got that transparent black sitting over everything. Our text looks really good. The flavor text here is great. I press enter to begin. That's not working yet, but we'll get there. So this worked nicely. Hey, we got a lose overlay. Let's draw our lose overlay as well. So draw lose overlay. So draw start, draw lose. Let's see what we got now. We should see our lose screen. Okay, that's less than awesome. That's less awesome. I mean, it still sort of works, but look what we're doing. We're drawing our game world, then we're drawing the start overlay, and then over that, we're drawing the lose overlay. We're actually drawing both overlays right now at the exact same time. That is not at all what we want to do. In fact, we don't always want to draw the start overlay or the lose overlay. We only want to draw them if we are in the start state or we are in the lose state. So we actually have to ask a question here. So we're going to say, hey, if, and then we'll ask a question. And if the answer to this question is yes or true, then we will draw our start overlay. Then we'll ask another question. We'll say, if some question, and if the answer to this question is yes or true, then we will draw our lose overlay. So what are our questions that we want to ask in here? Well, let's target this one first. When do we want to draw our start overlay? Well, we want to draw the start overlay if we are currently in the start mode. So do you remember we have a variable that's keeping track of the current game mode that we are in? We did it in mission number 2. It's called current game mode. We're going to check to see if current game mode is equal to our start mode. So 1 equal sign assigns a value. 2 equal signs is a loose check for equality. 3 is the strong point. It is a strong check for equality, strict equality. So we're going to use 3 equal signs to check for equality. And then we are going to see, okay, well, we want to check to see if it's equal to start. How do I get my start mode? Well, that's in our object game mode, which has properties, and we're going to check to see if we are equal to its start property. If that's the case, then our start overlay should show. And then what do we got to ask for our lose overlay? Well, we're going to do something similar. We're going to do current game mode. We're going to check that variable's value. 3 equal signs to check for strict equality. And this time we're going to check to see if it is equal to our game mode object's lose property. All right, I think that's really great. Now, there's just one small thing we're going to say here. We're going to say, okay, we're asking 2 specific questions, but we really don't have to ask 2 questions because if this question answered yes or true, if the current game mode is start, then the answer to this question will always be no. There's no point in even asking it at all. So the way we can skip this question, if this question answers yes, is by writing else if here. So this sort of pairs these questions together. It says, ask this question, and if this is not yes, then ask this question, and only ask it if it is the previous one answered no. All right, so we got that. So let's check this out. So right now, and I just love having things aligned here, so I'm going to fix that. Right now, what is our current game mode state? It's equal to the start mode, so we should only see the start screen. All right, there's our start screen, our start overlay. That looks pretty good. Our lose overlay is gone. Let's go change the value of current game mode. I'm going to search for mission 2, because mission 2 is where we set that. So now, let's set current game mode. When we start the game, let's start the player in the lose state. It's just automatically game over, right, when we start the game. So let's see. Now we should see the lose overlay. All right, and there it is. You lost the pattern. Perfect. And let's set it to the play mode. So if we put it in play mode, we should see neither. All right, we should see neither. And it's just our game. Hey, look at that. This is working pretty good. The only problem is we can't be in here changing the code, right? I can't be changing this as we're playing it. We need the program to dynamically change our mode. So let's set it back to start, and then we got to target how do we get the game to swap all of those values. Well, the other thing is we're going to say is when we're in the start mode, you can see I can still move my player. The world is still active, and that is not quite right. Like in the start mode, the world should be static, and it should only we should only be able to move once I hit enter and move into a play state. So let's target mission number 6 here and see what that has us do. So it puts us in our P5's draw function. This is that function that runs every single frame of our game. And it says we are going to target our play mode update. Only update movement during play mode. Stop game action while other overlays are showing. So inside of this draw function, which runs every single frame of our game, we're asking a question. And that question says, if true. Well, if your question is true, that will always, always, always evaluate to true or yes. So this code is always going to run. And right now I have the code inside curly brackets because I'm going to put multiple lines here as we build this game out. So we want to run all of those multiple lines. So right now, this is a really bad question because this is always answering yes, and we're always updating the player. Even if we are in the start mode, we are updating the player. That is not what we want to do. In fact, we only want to update the player if we are currently in our play mode. So we got to ask a question. We're going to say current game mode, and we're going to say, is the current game mode variable equal to the play state? That play state is stored in our game mode objects play property, so dot play. If we are in the play state, then we'll update the player. But if we're not, this code won't run, and the only thing we do every single frame of our game is draw our scene. Let's check it out. We should hopefully have a static player right now. So right now, I'm going to hit the arrow keys. I'm going to hit the A and D keys. Nothing. No movement at all. So we are officially locked out of the game when we are in the start state. But we can see right here, we got to press enter to begin. So if I hit enter, it should now move to the play state, and it is not. So that is broken. Let's go fix it. Mission number 7 is where we'll work to fix this. Okay, it finds us in a brand new function. A brand new function called keyPressed. Where does this function live? Well, it lives right next to draw and setup, which are part of the P5 game loop functions. So the keyPressed is another P5 function. Essentially, it's going to get triggered anytime a keyboard button is pressed down on our keyboard. So setup runs once when we start our game. So if I refresh my game, boom, setup ran. I refresh my game, boom, setup ran. Draw runs every single frame of our game. keyPressed runs anytime the user presses a button on their keyboard. And when we press a button on our keyboard, we get access to what button is being pressed, either through a key code or through the key variable. So key code, first thing we do is we ask a question. It says, hey, a keyboard button was pressed, so this function runs, and we say if the key code was enter. Enter is a pretty important key, so it's got a special key code here of enter. And if the answer to that question is yes, it looks like we ask a follow-up question. So we have nested questions or nested if statements. This second question only gets asked if the first one answered yes. Like you passed the first test, the button you pressed was enter. So now, what is the current state of our game? If it's currently our start mode or our lose mode, then what do we want to do? Well, we want to transition to our play state. So if you think about it, we're going to say, okay, a button was pressed. Was the button enter? If it was enter, what mode are we in? If the mode was start, when we're in the start mode, you see how it says press enter to begin? Or if we were in the lose mode, I'm pretty sure for our lose overlay, we also say press enter to play again. We now want to transition into the play state. We want to play the game. So we got to transition into our play state. So to do that, we're going to target that current game mode variable, tab for autocomplete, and we'll assign it a new variable, game mode dot play. So our game mode object's play property. Let's check it out. Let's see. So I'm going to press enter to begin. Hey, I'm in the play state now. So this is pretty good. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret because I got a line of code here to transition us directly to the lose state. Because right now there's no way for us to lose this game, but I want to see my lose overlay. So if I scroll down here in the key pressed function, if we press a key, it's going to check to see, all right, if that key was lowercase g or capital G, we ask a follow-up question. If our current game mode is equal to play, it is, then we change our current game mode to lose. So this is what we'll call our debug. We are going to force a lose screen here on the press of the G key. So let's see. So right now, if I press, I'm in the play state, right? All right, so if I press G, I go to the lose state. Hey, that's pretty good. And so now we're in the lose state. And if I press an enter, if I press the enter key, this functional trigger, the key is enter, and we're no longer in the start state, but we are in the lose state. So if I press enter, I should transition back to our play mode. So let's take a look. And I'm right back to our play state. So that's really great. But did you notice when I restarted my game, I didn't start back here in the center. I started over here where I had died. I don't like that. So we got to do something. When we go into our play state, we got to make sure we reset our player. In fact, we probably got to do more than that. We probably got to reset like everything in our game. And so if we look, we have a nice function here called reset game to defaults. And so we're going to, as we put more and more things into our game, maybe like enemies or like patterns that we have to jump from one platform to another, we want to make sure we reset them all to the beginning values. And that's what's going to happen here in this function. So let's call reset game to defaults right before we transition to the play state in mission 7. So we'll say reset game to defaults, tab for autocomplete, and a set of parentheses to actually call it, and a semicolon for good JavaScript. So now let's run this again and let's test this. So I'm here in the title state, start state, play. All right, now I'm over here on the edge of the platform. It's a game over, and when I restart, the player should reposition. Hey, that's perfect. We are back to where we are looking at. So game over. Perfect. Now, if you look here, it says press R for the title screen. Right now, if I press R, that functionality is not working. I should be able to go back to my title screen at any point to like reset my game. So we've got to write that functionality here in mission number 8. This is the last thing that we need to do. It says return to the title screen with the press of the R key, reset the game, and switch back to start mode. So if you look, we're asking a question. Right now, it says if false. Well, that question is always going to be false. It's always going to answer no, so this code will never run. And the code that we're doing is we're resetting all of our game. So we're resetting our game to its default values, and then we're putting the current game mode to our start menu. So this should show our start overlay. So we just got to get a question here that is sometimes yes, sometimes no. And the question that we want to ask is, what key is being pressed? If it's the R key, then we're going to restart our game. We're going to run this code. So we'll mimic what we have down below for our debug. We're going to say, hey, we have access to the key that was pressed. If it's equal to lowercase r, or 2 vertical bars for or, is the key equal to capital R? Maybe they got caps locks on, so we'll let them still use it. If that is the case, now we'll reset our game and put it back into its start mode. Hey, I think our game states system is complete. Let's refresh the page. Let's run this. Let's work through the whole thing. So right now, we are in the start state. I can't move at all. We're being blocked out of our main updates because we're in the start state, and I have to press enter to transition to the play state. Now I'm in the play state. The start overlay is gone. I see my game world. I can move about. This is perfect. I'm playing. I'll do a hotkey press of G to end the game, which puts us in the lose state, and I see the lose overlay. Awesome. So now I'm here in the lose overlay. I can press enter to transition back to the play state. And when I do, my game resets. The player goes back to its starting position. I'm here in the play state. Perfect. I decide, hey, I'm time to end the game. I hit G for game over. And if I want to play again, I could go back to the play state with enter, but I could press R to go to the start state to see the title screen. And now we're back in the start state. I can leave it here for a while. Someone walks by and says, hey, I want to play. They hit enter, back in the play state, and they say, oh, I got to go. Let's just go to the title screen. R transitions us right back to that start state. Wonderful. So I think this is a perfect place to stop here. We did a great job putting some back-end logic into our program. Our program now understands what state our game is in. We've got the start state, the play state, the lose state, and the ability to swap between those states at the press of a button. When that happens, our game handles showing the correct overlay. It puts the start overlay in the front. It removes it so we see our game world, or it puts the lose overlay in the front. And we could easily expand this. Maybe you want to add like, I don't know, a pause state. So when the user presses the P key, we'll draw a new overlay that says pause, and all of our game is paused for the moment. We could absolutely add that because our system works on our simple level. And when it works on a simple level, it should be easy to scale it up. So maybe that's something you want to try on your own. So with that, I'll stop here and I'll see you in the next video.